Hello, in today's video, I have 4 new foundation releases at various price points and coverage levels to review for you and give you my full thoughts on. In this foundation roundup, you'll see how they apply, what they look like, and how they wear on me, and what skin type I think would benefit the most from each foundation. Welcome back to my channel. Welcome if you're new. I review a lot of foundations and concealers and other complexion products here on my channel because I'm in my upper 40s, and as we age, it just gets harder and harder to find the right products for our skin. So let's see how these foundations worked for me and if any might work for you. And I also have a shade update for you on a foundation I loved in my last foundation roundup last month. So let's go ahead and get started. Because our skin type and climate impact how foundations look and wear throughout the day so much, I always start there with my foundation roundups in case this is your first time watching any of my foundation reviews. I'm almost 49 years old. I live in New Orleans, where it's extremely hot and humid the majority of the year. So I'm really hard on foundations because they are very prone to sliding off your face no matter what skin type you have. And I have combination oily skin that's pretty normal and can sometimes be dry around the perimeter, but I get some shine and oil breakthrough in the center of my face, especially in these hot, humid months like we're having now. There are no first impressions here when it comes to foundation reviews. I always test them out multiple days using different methods, using no primer and various types of primers, and show you clips throughout that I think give you a good picture of my overall experience with each foundation. I always have to set my foundations with powder, but you will see what they look like both set and unset. The primers and powders I normally use and test with, along with everything I'm sharing and wearing today, will be linked down in my description box, and I'll have as many products linked through the YouTube shopping icons as I can. They just don't always have everything. So if you don't see something you're looking for, check my description box because everything will be there. This is my newest foundation buy. I couldn't wait to get my hands on and review for you. This is the Charlotte Tilbury Unreal Skin Sheer Glow Tint Hydrating Foundation Stick. That's a really long name. So this retails for $46 for 0.3 ounces. Keep in mind, stick foundations are more concentrated, so you typically get less than in your typical 1 ounce foundation bottle. There are 20 stretchable shades. I grabbed it in 4 Fair, and you'll see that swatch here in a minute. They claim this is a light coverage, weightless, hydrating foundation stick that smooths, blurs, and leaves a second skin, soft focus, radiant, glowy finish. There are some skincare ingredients in here. We have hyaluronic acid, vitamin E, and a collagen complex to hydrate, plump, and nourish for more youthful looking skin immediately and over time. This glides on my skin beautifully and blends out quickly and easily using any method, really. And I think you can see that golden, metallic, radiance, glow, sheen, whatever you want to call it, that was evident when I swiped it on my skin, but continued to be evident as I blended it out. And you can see the difference from one side of my face to the other. Now, I know they say this is supposed to smooth and blur, and I'm not someone that has particularly large pores, but I don't feel like this smoothed or did my pores any favors. Now, the first time I tried this all over my face, it immediately reminded me of Hollywood Flawless Filter, which is a beloved product everyone tries to do. I'm not someone that wears Hollywood Flawless Filter all over my face, even under foundation though, because as someone that isn't 20 or 30 anymore, you have to be careful when you're dealing with reflective or products that give a little shine because they can exaggerate pores and texture and fine lines. So I place this strategically to enhance the high points of my face that I want to enhance, that I want to emphasize under foundation and over, just, depending on my mood. So I'm doing something a little bit differently today, and I'm showing you this new stick foundation on this half of my face and Hollywood Flawless Filter on this side, so you can see and let me know in the comments what differences you think there are. I wanted to show you both of these on my face with these clips today so that you could understand what was going through my head the whole time, which was, I think this is just Hollywood Flawless Filter in stick form. And once they're applied to my face, I think you can see that. I do apologize. I didn't realize my front-facing camera needed to be cleaned off so badly. I think it's a little bit foggy, but I think you can get the gist. That glowy sheen finish is the same on both sides, and the coverage level. Let's talk about the coverage level. So Hollywood Flawless Filter is not a coverage product. It kind of airbrushes with that glowy radiance with a very sheer veil. But if you have a lot of redness or things to cover, you're typically going to also apply a skin tint or a foundation over this, or apply this over one of those products if you're going to use it at all. This does not have the light coverage that it claims. This has that same coverage level of Hollywood Flawless Filter. I also think Hollywood Flawless Filter looks much better on my pores than the new stick foundation. It also feels a little bit more lightweight. And I went ahead and set my face with a translucent powder so you could really see the coverage level and how it takes that super glowy metallic highlighted looking finish down a little bit and looks more natural and wearable for me and my skin type anyway. Even setting with powder, I get 3.5 to 4 hours max out of this foundation stick. The shade I have in Hollywood Flawless Filter is 3 Light Medium, and I grabbed the new stick foundation in 4 Fair. Here they are side by side. I can't tell a difference in shade, finish. They both look the same basically. So I'm just really confused about this launch. I don't really see a place for it. I was excited to see Charlotte Tilbury was coming out with a stick foundation, a coverage product that functioned as a foundation to even out your skin tone. But that's not what this is. If you don't have Hollywood Flawless Filter, or maybe you have it and you want something more portable, or you don't like the doe foot applicator and you prefer something in stick form, that to me is where this fits in. If you're wanting a coverage product to even out redness or even out your skin tone in any way that has longevity for all over your face, this is not that. I'm really confused why we needed this when we had this already, when an actual stick foundation would have been a great product to launch. I almost didn't put this in a foundation roundup at all, but I was starting to get asked about it and I knew it needed to be somewhere, and it is categorized as a foundation. So here we are. This just misses the mark completely as a foundation. I can't even say it's a bad foundation because to me, it's misnamed, it's mismarketed. It's a really nice stick highlighter, another alternative to Hollywood Flawless Filter in another form, but it's not a foundation. I tend to get very irritated when foundations are reformulated, but when I saw this reformulation launch, I was really excited. Now, if you've been subscribed to me for a long time, for several years, you'll understand why. So this is the new Too Faced Born This Way Soft Matte Oil Control Foundation. This is a new, improved, enhanced version of the matte foundation in the glass bottle, but in lightweight portable packaging. It's $46 for 1 ounce, which is the same price and the same amount of product that the matte foundation in the glass bottle was. Now, the reason why I was excited about this launch is because I liked the matte foundation, but I really loved their Peach Perfect foundation. And I know a lot of others did too. We were all very sad when it was discontinued. Peach Perfect gave me that soft matte finish. It gave me the right amount of natural looking coverage and it smoothed my pores beautifully. So when I saw how they were launching this in a tube, and we'll get into some of the claims here in a second, I thought maybe this is sort of a combination of Peach Perfect and the matte foundation in the glass bottle, and they put it in a pump. So I looked up my previous reviews on both Peach Perfect and the matte foundation and the glass bottle when it first launched. That one was $40. That was around 3 years ago at that time. And Peach Perfect was $36 for 1.6 ounces. I remember you got a ton of product for what you paid, which doesn't really happen anymore that much. But there were also 35 shades of the matte foundation. There are 30 shades in this new one. I grabbed it in light beige, which is light with neutral undertones. It's cruelty-free, fragrance-free, alcohol-free, and vegan. And the claims are pretty similar to the previous glass bottle version. It's supposed to give you medium to full buildable coverage that smooths skin texture and pores and controls oil up to 24 hours while providing 12 hours of moisture so your skin doesn't feel dried out in the process. And it's supposed to give a blurred, soft matte finish and not crease or cake, and it's sweat resistant, water resistant, and all those good things. So I'm going to put the ingredient list here on the screen. It's pretty revamped with some similar ingredients and some new ingredients throughout. The texture of this is fairly runny and it's easy to work with, easy to blend out using a brush or a sponge. And I'd say the coverage is buildable from medium to medium full, which is what the previous version did for me too. After applying the foundation before setting, the finish is pretty natural. And after applying my makeup and setting everything, I get that soft matte finish that doesn't quite camouflage and smooth my pores in the same way that the previous version did, and especially not Peach Perfect. I have tested this with primer and without, and I just find it to be pretty much the same no matter what I do. If I'm wearing this with no primer, it looks pretty good for around 4 to 5 hours when I start to get some breakthrough shine, and I get pretty darn shiny around 9 hours in. And at the end of a long day, this clip is from around 12 hours. I'm looking pretty rough with some visible texture. I blotted my face with a tissue because I had so much shine and I just could feel it on my face, and you can see how much came off on this tissue. Now, if I wear a primer under this, whether it's a smoothing, blurring, gripping, or mattifying primer, I go much longer before I get shine breakthrough. And when I do get shine breakthrough, it's not greasy or obvious like when I don't wear a primer, and I don't have that same end of day situation or end of a long day situation like I do when I'm not wearing a primer. So basically, a primer is necessary for me with this foundation. And maybe it's a climate thing, but I didn't have that same need with the previous version, with the one in the glass bottle. And I'm basically taking Peach Perfect out of the equation now because this doesn't really compare in terms of smoothing pores and longevity and keeping my skin softly matte. So if you have normal skin, you may really like this, or maybe if you have combination skin, you live in a less humid climate than I do. I was really excited about this. I wanted it to work, but I like the previous version better. Of course, I like Peach Perfect better. That was fantastic. This just missed the mark for me, unfortunately. Next, we have e.l.f. Soft Glam Satin Foundation, which seems to be everywhere. Everybody wants to hear about this, so I'm going to give you my thoughts, but I want to give you a shade update first on the Tier Mask Fit Red Cushion Foundation that I reviewed in my last foundation roundup. I shared it in an Amazon video too, I think, and on both TikTok and Instagram. The shade that I bought is 24 in Latte, and it was just a little bit too deep and warm for me. And so somewhere the brand saw me talk about it and how much I liked it, and they reached out to me to send me shades so I could get a shade match. So I have matched myself to shade 23 in Sand. It is what I have on my face today. I'm hoping it looks good to you. It looks good in person. Sometimes these lights reflect more shine than what is really here in person. And if you missed this review and you want to see what I liked about this foundation or any of the foundations I tried last, I'll have that roundup linked up in the corner and down in my description box. Okay, back to our regularly scheduled program with e.l.f. Soft Glam Foundation. This is $8 for 1 ounce. There are 36 shades. I have shade 25 Light Neutral. It's cruelty-free, vegan, fragrance-free, and alcohol-free, and they claim this is a long-lasting, medium, buildable coverage, breathable foundation that gives a smooth satin finish. There's a 1% hydrating hibiscus complex in here, plus pomegranate and some berry extracts, and it's never supposed to look or feel cakey or heavy, and it's supposed to be great for all skin types, including acne-prone or sensitive skin. And I think I saw this quote on the e.l.f. website, but it says it's supposed to hit that dreamy sweet spot between full beat and barely there. And that says to me they're positioning this as being a good daily foundation. This has a thicker texture than I was expecting, but it blends out like a dream using any method seamlessly and gives beautiful medium coverage. A little bit goes a long way. And after playing with this many times now, I find that if you do apply a little bit too much, it can look a little bit makeup-y. So I like to apply a sheer layer first and build it wherever I feel I need a little bit more evening out or a little bit more coverage. This feels nice and lightweight and not tacky before setting and gives a natural satin finish. And after my makeup is complete and set down, the finish looks demi-matte but still skin-like and natural. It evens my skin tone and smooths my pores and texture. And every time I wear this, I just feel like my skin looks nice and healthy. It's flattering on my skin. Now, without a mattifying primer, I can get some shine in my shine-prone areas that I do need to blot every few hours. But blotting doesn't affect the way my makeup looks, and my shine never looks overly greasy or oily until around the 6 to 7 hour mark. On those days, those non-primer days, I can usually get about 7 to 8 hours wear out of this max before it starts looking, you know, too shiny and it starts to wear away. But I'm never mad at it on those non-primer days. I still think it wears beautifully during the time that I have it on. If I wear a mattifying primer with it, I can go longer before I need to blot, and it of course lasts longer because that's a primer's job. If you have mature, normal, dry skin, or even combination skin, you live in a less humid environment than I do, this is an easy drugstore yes, in my opinion. It feels good, it's hydrating, it's flattering, it's good for every day, and the price point is fantastic. But even if you have combination oily skin, I still think it's worth picking it up and trying it out. Throw a primer underneath and see if it works for you. I just don't think that you can beat this price point for what you get. Yes, it makes me shinier than I want to be without a primer, but you know, a lot of high-end foundations do that too, and I fully intend to pull this back out once the weather gets a little bit cooler. This was a pleasant surprise. Speaking of pleasant surprises, let's talk about Catrice Nude Drop Tinted Serum Foundation. Yes, I just gave you a blatant spoiler. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I didn't intend to put these foundations in any kind of an order, but the first two were high-end and I didn't really like them. And these last two are drugstore and I like them both. Now, I'm not telling you whether I like this one more or less than e.l.f. Let's go ahead and get into that. So this is $10 for 1.01 ounce, and it's actually been out for a little bit, maybe a couple of months. I'm not even sure, but I haven't heard anything about this. I saw it on Amazon and decided to grab it to test and review. There are 16 shades, and I have to say first that Catrice is one of the worst brands when it comes to trying to find your shade match. Their website is so incredibly unhelpful. For most of their foundations, this one included, they normally have a shade number and name with no description. On some of the foundations, they don't include all of the arm swatches together so you can get an overall big picture. With this foundation, they do, but the two lightest arms are on the outside. So if you're in between fair, light, and light medium, it makes it harder for you to find your shade. And when you click on a lot of the individual shade names or numbers, many of them don't even have model photos. Finding your shade is like playing darts with a blindfold on. It is truly a guessing game. So the shade you see here and the shade I'll be applying in the clips is 36C, which I initially thought was way too light. This is one of those foundations that is much lighter when it's wet, and once it sets and dries down, it deepens a little bit. So it becomes its true shade once it dries down. But if you're trying this foundation, wait for it to dry down before you decide if it matches or not. So on the left is shade 36C, on the right is shade 40N, and in the middle is e.l.f. 25, which is a nice match for me. And you can see wet on the top, and then the dry down is on the bottom. Catrice 36C looks way too light, but it does dry down to about the same shade as my e.l.f. shade. This is cruelty-free, vegan, fragrance-free, and alcohol-free. This is supposed to be their most lightweight skin-caring foundation. It's a hydrating serum formula that's supposed to give buildable light to medium coverage with a radiant, long-lasting finish. It's got hyaluronic acid and vitamin E so that you feel hydrated for up to 24 hours, they say. I was a little bit nervous about that because I thought it might be too much for my combination skin that gets oil breakthrough. This has a very thin, runny texture that blends out easily and quickly using any method, and it does give me light to medium buildable coverage depending on what I use to apply it and if I layer it or not. Sometimes I like using a damp sponge and getting just a light layer of coverage, but I've also used a dry sponge and have gotten really beautiful medium coverage, which almost seems like it wouldn't happen because of how thin this serum foundation is. Now, even though there's no fragrance added in this foundation, there is a makeup-y scent that I noticed when I first opened the bottle and start applying it to my face. I don't notice it after my makeup is finished, but I did want to make that note. Sometimes when brands don't add fragrance, what you're left with is the natural fragrances of the ingredients used in the product, and so I'm guessing that's what's going on here. I can't feel this foundation at all. It feels like I'm wearing nothing, and it looks like skin, but evens out my tone and texture and redness and just leaves my skin looking really nice and healthy, but not greasy or oily or dewy like a lot of serum foundations can, which is great for dry skin, but it's not always great for those of us with normal to oily skin, especially in the middle of the summer. Without a primer, it looks that way for several hours. Around 3 to 4 hours in, I start getting some natural shine that comes through, and I'll usually blot every 3 to 4 hours. And that'll continue every 3 to 4 hours. Now, this clip is from 11 hours, and I'm pretty shiny, but I don't hate the way my face looks. My texture isn't emphasized the way it can be at this point with a more radiant serum foundation. I feel like I still look, you know, pretty healthy and decent, even though I'm shiny. And again, I will repeat, when I wear a primer, I can go longer between getting shiny and it looks better longer. This is gonna sound very similar to what I said at the end of my e.l.f. review. If you have mature, normal, or dry skin, I think this is a great drugstore serum foundation that looks like skin. And if you have oily combination skin, I think it's worth trying if you're looking for a foundation with this type of finish and coverage. Try it with and without a primer and see if it works for you. This was another pleasant surprise, as I said at the beginning of the review. I've had so many serum foundation failures from drugstore to high end, so I'm always so happy when I find one that actually works for me, and this one did. I review foundations constantly. You can see more here, and I'm still working on my top foundations videos in various categories. Another one is coming very soon. I hope you found this helpful and enjoyable. If you did, give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you're not already. If you enjoy this type of content and everyday beauty made easy, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you next time. Bye.